I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Very good. I'm going to ask that we take time on the regular agenda and just go ahead and go into the new list of legislation. Item number 1 is an ordinance directing the appropriation of fee simple interest in real property owned by Martha Nelson located at 1052 Hazel Street for the purpose of constructing, maintaining, repairing, enlarging, and reconstructing sewer or sewers and water lines for drainage, sewerage, water line purposes in connection with the Hazel Street Storage Basin Project, CSO RACS 1011, declaring the intention of the City of Akron to proceed under ORC.
Thank you, Chairman.
Blah, 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 blah.
Committee members, yes, this would be the second step in the appropriation process. We would ask for consent agenda.
They're asking for consent.
Okay, questions or comments? Consent agenda is okay. Is there a motion for consent?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Nays, ayes have it. 2 is we're doing the new legislation first, and then we'll do the old legislation for the record.
You're done.
Again. 2, resolution declaring the necessity and intent of the City of Akron to appropriate fee simple interests in real property owned by Connie Riley, Thomas Simpkins, and the estate of Chappie Murphy, located at 1152 Fifth Avenue for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, repairing, enlarging, reconstructing a sewer or sewers and water lines for drainage, sewerage, and water line purposes in connection with CSO RAC 3 Kelly Green project.
This would be the first step in the process. We would ask for consent agenda.
Consent okay?
Yes.
All right, questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion for consent? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay? The ayes have it. 3, resolution declaring the necessity and the intent of the City of Akron to appropriate fee simple interest in real property owned by David White, located at 1166 Fifth Avenue, for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, and repairing, enlarging, and reconstructing a sewer or sewers and water lines for drainage, sewerage, and water line purposes in connection with CSO RAC 3 Kelly Green project.
This also would be the first step in the appropriation. We would ask for consent agenda.
Okie dokie. Questions or comments? Is there a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay. Ayes have it. We'll now move on to the new, one of the members asked that we
Thank you.
take time on the regular agenda, temporary time. We'll now go into the new list of the old list of legislation now. Okay. So, ordinance number 1. This is reference the Children's Hospital Medical Center. Mr. Zig is here representing the Children's Hospital. This is for the easement that was introduced last week.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Children's is looking to get an easement through Bowery and Exchange underground to connect with the new buildings and their whole campus, IT, and the fiber and the stuff I don't understand. But, you know, smart people like Mr. Ziggy here do. So I don't know if you have any questions or...
I thought attorneys knew everything. That's what you guys say. So, no? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
In case there's questions, Mr. Zig is here. So,
Do you want to just tell them a little bit about it, or since you came down?
Yes, thank you. Tim Ziga, I'm with Akron Children's Hospital, 1 Perkins Square, Akron, Ohio. This is basically, we're trying to look forward, and we've been working with the city's engineering department for the last year to try to coordinate this work with the Exchange Street, Cedar Street work, where they're going to turn it 2 ways. We're also working with the Akron Energy Systems so that we only have to tear the street up once, put this conduit in underneath now so that it can serve the block that the Cotter Building and the B.W. Rogers Building is currently located on, as well as the block on the other side of Bowery where we have our research institute, and we had acquired the church property. That's been demoed. But the plan is as when we develop those 2 blocks, that we'll have all the conduit in place to be able to connect everything and and then avoid tearing up the newly redone streets, a couple years out. So that's why we're
Thank you, Mr.
requesting it.
Ziga. Thank you. Thank you for that description. Is there any questions or comments? Hearing none. Would you like this passed this evening? Are you guys in a hurry for this thing, or consent
Well,
agenda okay? Or?
in order to meet the schedule with the cities,
Probably should.
The two-way project, it needs to get
Good.
done soon.
We will go. Is there a request for suspension of the rules with a favorable report? Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Thank you for coming down, Mr.
Thanks,
Ziga.
appreciate it.
Thanks. Two is, this is the commercial parking lot on the east side of Talbot and McKinley Avenue. Any questions or comments on this one? Ms. Mobian?
I have certainly been in conversation with the ward councilperson, and I went there and walked the property with the owner. This is the auto body shop, that's correct. And in light of the fact that we have these families that have come down and requested that we not do this, here's what I'm asking. There's this alley in back of his current business. And what I asked him on Friday when I met with him, if we were to vacate that alley, he could build his, and he'll take down the fence and build his building closer to his current location, meaning that it wouldn't be as close to those residences that were down here asking us not to. And if not, you're talking about having that land 25 feet from their homes. And I'm concerned about that. So I'm just asking you, what would have to occur for us to vacate that alley, if that's doable?
Well, yeah, it's a process that involves a request from a council member, essentially, and we would look into, we do an investigation into the vacation. So we send a request for comments to engineering, fire, police, utilities, any of the departments that would be involved and would be able to weigh in on whether or not it's a good idea or possible to vacate a street. It goes through Planning Commission. It would go to Planning Commission.
Okay.
And then it would have to come back to council to accept the actual plat once a plat's drawn up. So there's a process involved in it. I know that block is pretty long, and it does involve a lot of people whose property fronts that little alley that runs through there. It's Minority Place is the name.
So from the request being made until a possible answer or resolution, what are we talking about, roughly?
3 months.
3 months. And when I talked with him, certainly he wants to stay there. The business has been there almost 50 years. There's no question about that. And I even sat in front of the ladies' homes, which is, they're both next door to each other at the corner. And I couldn't hear what she played for us, but that doesn't mean anything. I don't sleep there, and I'm not there early in the morning, so I would expect to hear whatever she is purporting to have heard. Does this need to be made in writing, or would you consider the request I'm making now an official request?
Well, we are actually looking at it now, the
You are?
possibility.
Okay.
I would say that it's a little longer than 3 months, probably because it would involve somebody to hire a surveyor to actually do the plat and all of that, so that could take some time as well.
Okay. So let's say it took 6 months, and I don't know what the ward council person would think of that. He didn't give me the indication that he was urgently in need of doing this, unless he's spoken differently to the council person. I'm just concerned that we have residents who have come down and asked us not to put it in their face. And, and I want to be sensitive to their request. So if we can look into this will certainly be helpful to me trying to make a decision, because I would like to support what the council person is trying to do, create jobs and expand his business that has been there for a long time. And he showed me the big cabs behind the church that he's renting space to put over there. So, but I'm just troubled that they've asked us not to do it, and what we're doing is essentially putting it closer to them, part of the business. And I know you're talking about a lot to park the vehicles on, and he's talking about expanding his business too, so I'm not really sure what noise would be created by that.
Well, I could say in the conversations between the ward councilwoman and I mean, we did talk about that option of vacating. We did talk about other things, and also actually he ended up moving his building back the 25 feet as opposed to what it was originally set at. So there was some compromise that had already been made.
Right.
So he agreed that, yeah, we'll move it back. So that 25 feet is the actual setback along the street.
Right.
So it does move the building back a little bit.
Right.
And so that's, as well as the parking. So the parking would be moved back to 25 feet as well. So, you know, there was a little back and forth.
And I thought the residents were comfortable with this compromise, but it sounds like they're still concerned about it.
Agreed.
Yeah. So that's my request, if we could take time and explore the vacation of the alley to allow him to move it closer to his current building.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Ms. Mosley Samples?
Thank you. I just want to say for the record, the vacationing of that street is not something that is new. Myself and Mike, we have went back and forth with Raj and them almost 2 years about trying to figure out how to vacation Minority Place. We started with trying to see how we could vacation the entire strip of Minority Place, which runs parallel to Arlington Street, due to a lot of drugs and prostitution in that alley. The portion where Raj's shop sits, he's always been willing to do that. He's been willing to purchase it, but it's been at a standstill for several reasons, utilities and some other things that were going on. My concern is that after we had the public hearing on Monday, family didn't show up for the public hearing. We openly told them we would meet with them to talk about any compromises when we met with Mike, and he came down here with the drawings. None of them showed up. I had the police officers pull records for me to see if there was ever any calls about noise from All Around Body Shop, and they've been there since 1974, and there's not one phone call ever about noise from this business. Only calls that have ever come for service were ones that they made from people breaking into the business. But then I also had them pull other calls as far as breaking, entering, burglary, shots fired, well over 30 of them. So I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing here. We're not just catering to one person, one family, instead of that entire community, which EANDC supports greatly. They came down here to the public hearing. They've been very, very vocal about their support of this expansion. They have been good stewards in that community. They always participate in anything going on in that community, whether through funding or just outright support. And I would hate to lose a business when I'm already struggling to get people to move on Arlington Street. If there's a way to vacation the alley, absolutely, I would want to do that. But I don't want that to turn into now they're back down here again saying there's noise that's so overwhelming they can hear it from inside of the house, which, you know, I'm not going to even respond to that. But I just want us to be very mindful that I have to represent the collective, not just one family. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, Mr. Antonucci, in terms of the vacation itself, how much space would that create? I mean, distance-wise, I guess.
Things about, I think it's 15 feet wide,
Okay.
15, 16 feet. So
Right.
it would, yeah, but it may allow an addition to the back of the building. But we do have to look at access through there. We have to look
Oh,
at
yeah, there's a lot of
utilities,
issues.
and there's a lot of things to look at.
Agree, Mr. Yes, sir.
And just to add to that with regards to what Mr. Antonucci said, I think, there are two issues with the vacation. One is to look at just the utility of keeping or not having a street, as he kind of mentioned, and my default is usually we like keeping streets open when we can. There might be compelling reasons to not have it open, but that would lead into the second thing, which would be, I think if we were to vacate it for that purpose of moving that building, we would have to have a lot of, this kind of gets to what Councilwoman Mosley Samples mentioned, we'd have to have a lot of assurance that that truly is solving, the problem that's being raised, because what we wouldn't want to do is vacate that street to move it and then still have concerns about noise or other issues, so.
Correct. Thank you. Ms. Mobian?
I don't know how many families were represented, but there were 2 houses that this business would be directly in front of. And, I am not disputing the fact that there's support for this business to stay there. He didn't give me any indication that he was going to move. He just said that he would like to expand his business. And I know he was exploring some other properties behind him as well. But the concern that I have is that we're talking about just taking some time to explore whether or not this is possible. And I know Councilwoman said that this has been going on. If someone could give us a report as to what has been going on and what have you learned, and see if we can get those families to come down and hear what we are told about whether we can vacate that alley or not. I'm just troubled when people are saying that they're hearing noises, and I heard the comment that it's never been reported, but then we move it in your face as opposed to away from the family more. So you're moving whatever the additional part of this business directly across the street from their homes. And I realize you're saying 25 feet, but that's not a whole lot. But the vacating of this alley would allow the addition to be closer to the current building, and the buffer of trees or shrubberies or whatever they plan to put there would eventually block some of the sound, and it wouldn't be in their face, so to speak, because this is much closer to their homes. And as I drove down that street, that section of Talbot is pretty well maintained. I was quite impressed with how they maintain their houses and so forth. So again, I certainly don't want to go against the councilwoman's wishes, but I'm not prepared to vote in favor of this either. I'm troubled by this request. So with that said, I would like for someone to give us a report about what would be involved in doing this and how long would it take.
Can do that.
Okay. Thank you. Further questions or comments? Okay, very good. Yes, Mr. Neal.
No, I appreciate the information about the alley, but I'm honestly, I didn't know that was an alley behind the Anderson. So I don't know how much would be lost by losing that. It may even be a win for a bigger win for the residents. I know where Anderson is. You can't wait till, I thought that was part of the parking, honestly. No. I'm talking about the alley. I didn't know that was an alley behind the alley. I mean, I knew that one part you turned in, but I just thought it was how you turned into the parking, honestly. So yeah, that right there seems like it can be I'm just looking at it on the map right now. It looks like it could be a solution to this for everybody, and be a bigger win for the residents who, if, as the councilwoman mentioned with the problems in the back, I definitely wouldn't want to have an alley behind me with that type of, where I got to be concerned about in front of me and behind me.
Well, part of the concern there is that it's a long stretch there. It's a long block
I'm
between.
at
And so there's a set, we can decide, we can do a portion of it, but then you have a dead end potentially, an alley that just goes nowhere, which could be dangerous. I think the councilwoman sort of had concerns that way. Or you don't go the entire length, and it involves a lot of properties a lot of length and a lot of time to actually get that plat put together, and concerns with utilities and as well as safety. So there's a lot to look at with that.
And I think the issue becomes, again, is moving it 15 feet, is that really sufficient to mitigate concerns that might be there about the noise? I think that there's still some question about that, too.
Very good. Yes, Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had an opportunity to go over to the facility both Saturday. I didn't realize they weren't open. I listened for noise for a while, only to find out today they weren't open, so I didn't hear any noise. But I did talk to Raj, kind of took a tour of the location, and he seems to, his concerns, he does have real concerns about the alleyway, and potentially by vacating, it could help mediate some of the challenges that they see happening there. I was very pleased to see aesthetically, because in my head I had a different perception of what the building would look like. It seems like they went to great lengths to make sure that it fit nicely into the neighborhood. But by vacating the alleyway, what Rod shared with me is it would give them an opportunity to bring trucks through the alleyway instead of coming up McKinley and around and coming through near Talbot, which would probably make good sense if we can. And I kind of walked the alleyway. I know I said in the barber shop, but I didn't see many places that look to be functioning, or even from the residents that they even lead out to the alleyway. So is there something that I'm missing?
Yeah, again, there are a lot of properties that back up to the alley. Some actually use that to get through to property. There's a parking lot at least that comes out that way.
The one that goes, the barber shop that goes does it go out to Arlington too?
Well, yeah, it does go out to Arlington. Most of it can come out Arlington. But it would involve property owners to sign on and to agree to do that. It would be a process to get all the folks involved to agree to do that.
Because it is a fairly long alley. I mean, it runs from Fifth Avenue to Lover's Lane, and it's probably, just guesstimating like maybe close to half a mile long.
This has been discussed in terms of, Mosley Samples is aware that for years, like, leave it, take it, it's been a discussion for some time. But is there any further questions or comments?
Sir.
Thank you very much. The Ward Council Representative, Ms. Mosley Samples, would like to take time on this particular item. All those in favor of time signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. I'm going to request time on the balance of the agenda short of any concerns. Thank you all for being here.
He said it pretty fast. He said.
Oh, we're good. Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.